Cuba, que viva Cuba. Cuba para siempre.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to For the Love of Cuba. Let me know in the comments section if you can hear me well and if you can see me well. That way, we can start off today's show with something very important. Today, I want to take apart the speech made by President of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez, formerly mostly known by Diaz-Canel and another expletive at the end of it. Sorry for that stuttering there. That's a difficult word to pronounce. But anyway, so we're going to be taking apart the speech given by Diaz-Canel on July 11th, 2021, which, if you all remember, July 11th, 2021 was a very important day in Cuban history, and it will probably go down in the books as one of the most important days in Cuban history, because it was a day when the people of Cuba finally decided to stand up for themselves after 62 years in a revolution that many of them may have wanted at the beginning, but quickly found out they did not want anymore. And they've been trapped in that revolution for 62 years, and it's been, to put it quite nicely, awful. There's plenty of words we could use to describe that, but right now I'm trying to stay professional and I'm trying to stay with the word awful. So without further ado, we're going to get into that speech given by Diaz-Canel on July 11th, 2021. I have taken the liberty of translating the entire speech into English. There's just a few sentences here and there where I did not put them because they weren't really, first of all, his speech was not very inspiring or anything like that. It was not eloquent whatsoever. So there's parts in English which were even less eloquent than they were in Spanish. I just, it was like 3 sentences where I just was like, this is awful. I'm not even gonna, he's not even speaking like in a way where I can translate this into English. So, all right. What I'll do and the format of it, it's going to be that I'm going to read parts of his speech and in English, like I said, and then give what I feel is the right commentary and the right critique of that part, and then continue reading other parts of his speech. So here we go. This is a speech given by the so-called President of Cuba on July 11th, 2021, following the mass freedom protest on the island of Cuba. Translated into English by yours truly, Jasper, which is the host of For the Love of Cuba. So here we go. Regrettably, we must interrupt this Sunday, a day which our families use to rest, to share with you the news of a group of provocations which have been occurring. We have been honest, transparent, and in all moments have explained to the people of Cuba the real situation. We're going to stop right there. Diaz-Canel and his henchmen, which is all of the Cuban government, have not explained to the people of Cuba any sort of real situation. They've only explained to the people of Cuba what they've wanted the people of Cuba to know, which is that you're poor and you're in misery because the U.S. is a bad country, which is not the case, as I will later defend that argument now and give a rebuttal to the argument by Diaz-Canel by defending by giving statements in defense of that argument as an American, as a Cuban American, because let's be real, that's not what's happening in Cuba. So now we're going to continue with what Diaz-Canel said. I want to remind you that over a year and a half ago, we explained that we would experience a difficult time, after which it became sort of a general joke, since we have always nevertheless persisted, even despite all the restrictive sanctions during the Trump administration. These are hypocritical and counterintuitive receipts that we know all too well from the history of the USA towards Cuba. Once again, these are Diaz-Canel's words. We know how they intervened in our country and appropriated our own island in 1902, how they had dominated the island during the time of the pseudo-republic, and how those interests were destroyed by the Cuban Revolution during its victory. This victory and the example set by the revolution has bothered them since the 60 years since. And so they have constantly applied a blockade, which is felt even worse during these conditions of the pandemic. And there's their evilness, actions which they have never taken against another country, yet they have done this against our small island, which only aspires to defend its independence and sovereignty while constructing a society according to the principles which coincide with more than 86% of its people through democratic election. All right, we're going to stop right there because what he just fed to the Cuban people at that point was more than lies, more than overinflation of the truth, or it's just ridiculous. And I'm not even sure where to start with this part because, first off, Diaz-Canel was not elected by the Cuban people. That's just the number one thing. Okay. He was elected by the Communist Party of Cuba, which I have to sorry, I'm trying to get my parts here, my notes here. Okay, he was elected by the Communist Party of Cuba after he had been pushed ahead of the line of successors after Fidel Castro's death. He wasn't even supposed to be the first in line to succeed Castro. Yet he was put to the front of the line because obviously, as you can tell now, he's not a very smart guy. And they wanted to make sure they had someone that they can just completely control. So let's be clear. There was no democratic election which determined Diaz-Canel president of Cuba because there has not been an actual presidential election in Cuba since 1959, when the revolution established a one-party system. Also, Diaz-Canel claims that the USA is still upset because the revolution took away their ability to partner and trade with Cuba is a bit unrealistic, given that the USA is the one who placed an embargo on Cuba. However, the US-Cuban embargo is not a topic which we're going to dive into right now. It's actually a topic we'll dive into in a separate broadcast because it's going to take a lot of time to explain. Either way, I think the USA is doing just fine in all aspects without Cuba. So I doubt the USA is crying because Cuba's revolution no longer allowed the US to play with them. Now, let's continue with what else he has to say, even though it's extremely ridiculous. But let's continue because that's what this program's about. All right, so Diaz-Canel continues now saying this. So through a very cowardly, subtle, and perverse way, the ones who have always supported the embargo with Yankee doctrines start to appear with doctrines of humanitarian intervention, which we all know is only to further enforce the idea that the Cuban government is not capable of overcoming this situation on its own. And if they are so interested in wanting this health crisis in Cuba to end, then lift the embargo and we will see how we do. But why don't they lift it? Why don't they have the valor of lifting the US-Cuban embargo? And what legal term sustains that a country can apply that type of policy to another country in the middle of such an adverse situation? Is that not genocide? We made the vaccine for the Cuban people because we knew we didn't have money. Okay, here we go. We didn't have money to go to purchase them in the international market. Yet now they say we are assassins. Where are the assassinated? Where are the missing? Other countries which suffered from the same pandemic did not receive a campaign of such discredit. let's stop right there. We're not even going to address the missing people in Cuba right now because there are way too many to speak of since the inception of the revolution 62 years ago. But I will take up the topic of the so-called vaccines. Before I do that, I do want to say I'm also not going to touch the topic of the U.S.-Cuban embargo because it only serves the Cuban government for that embargo to be lifted, so that way they can steal all the stuff they trade with the U.S. But we're not going to touch that right now. We're just going to honestly touch the part of the vaccines. Okay. These vaccines have no public data regarding their makeup, manufacturing process, and other important information which the world has a right to know. Yet, what I find most fascinating is his boasting of the country of Cuba, creating 2 COVID vaccines from scratch. Because of the following information I am about to share with you. I don't know if anybody has gone to research the COVID mortality rates or the COVID infection rates in Cuba recently, but I am going to share with you something. So on the Cuban government reported that they started vaccinating the people of Cuba with their so-called vaccines on May 13th, 2021, on which day the World Health Organization, another organization which I'm not a big fan of, but whatever, the World Health Organization reports there was a total of 1,186 new COVID cases in Cuba. Let us now fast forward to one day ago, August 17th, 2021. Just one day ago, the total number of new COVID cases was 9,772 new positive COVID cases. Let that sink in. 9,772 cases. That is a total increase of 8,586 new COVID cases since the Cuban government started vaccinating my Cuban brothers and sisters. That is, for those of you who do not like to do math, an 88% increase in new cases. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, it seems ever more likely that their vaccines are just a placebo. They are just water in a fancily labeled vial purporting to save lives. But anywho, let us continue with his so-called inspirational speech. Diaz-Canel goes on to say, I think they just want to suffocate us and end the revolution. And that is why they are trying to intimidate and confuse our people. Because when people are in such severe conditions, things like what happened in San Antonio de los Baños take place. All right, we're going to stop here again because this is just a level of projection which is beyond fathomable. The only entity, and I want to make this clear, the only entity which is suffocating the Cuban people is the revolution. The only individuals which are intimidating and confusing the Cuban people are those who make up the Cuban government. And the severe conditions which Cuban people find themselves in is not because of anything other than the 62 years of failed and mismanaged governance in Cuba. But anyway, let's keep listening to what Diaz-Canel had to say on July 11th, 2021. Diaz-Canel goes on to say, the birth of this uprising has been taking place for several days, so that in various cities in Cuba, there would be these types of manifestations and social disturbances. And that is extremely criminal during a time in which we need to achieve that people stay home, stay safe, and that they are protecting themselves. I'm going to pause right there and say, actually, Diaz-Canel, what I think is criminal is that you are forcibly injecting people with a vaccine which does not work. It does not work because your government fails to do anything right. But anyway, let's continue with what you have to say, right? All right, Diaz-Canel continues on saying, while all of this was happening in Santiago de los Baños, there were also other cities and locales which too were out motivated by the same evil. And that is why I'm giving this information, so that I can rectify that in Cuba, the streets are for the revolutionaries, that the Cuban government, the Cuban state, which is headed by the Communist Party, has all the political desire to discuss, to argue, to recognize the problems we have, to also be able to participate in the solution of these problems by recognizing what is the real and fundamental cause of them, without allowing ourselves to be confused that those who are inciting that there be manifestations in Cuba do not want for Cuba good health. Let's read that part one more time, because I think it's very important that people see the level of lies that the Cuban government feeds everybody. The Cuban government, the Cuban state, which is headed by the Communist Party, has all the political desire to discuss, to argue, to recognize the problems we have, so that we can also be able to participate in the solution of these problems by recognizing what is the real and fundamental cause of them, without allowing ourselves to be confused by those who are inciting that there be manifestations in Cuba, because those doing that do not want good for Cuba's health, is basically what he said. He goes on to say, remember your principles because their method is neoliberal. It is the privatization of the medical system and education. It is a save yourself type. And it cares for the lives and health of those who have money to pay for it. We're going to stop right there, take a pause right there, and we're going to explain something to you, Diaz-Canel. No, Diaz-Canel, your method is the one which is actually neoliberal. Your method is actually Neanderthal-like. You're stating that the streets are only for those who belong to the same ideology as you, as if Cuba was a gangland. And you do not want to engage in a dialogue, because if you did, you would not jail those who think differently than you. You would not jail those who express that they want a new form of government. And you clearly do not want to be part of the solution, because you're currently calling for a civil war as the solution to this mess you find yourself in because of a failed ideology. Also, the principles of the Cuban people are not to suffer and die at the hands of a government who will only save them if they are going to keep agreeing with everything the government says or does. The principles of the Cuban people are actually stronger than that. The principles of the Cuban people are to fight for the truth, not just your continued lifestyle of luxury while the rest of the Cuban people live and die in miserable conditions. All right, now we're going to get to the part where he turns up the heat for real. Diaz-Canel goes on to say, we are not going to give up our sovereignty, nor the independence of our people, nor the liberty of this nation. Okay, End quote there. And pause. What liberty, Diaz-Canel? Is it liberty when people must live in the poorest conditions and cannot even name what upsets them, what hurts them, what oppresses them? Is it liberty when people are not even allowed to freely walk on the street saying they want freedom? I do not believe that is liberty. I believe that is called tyranny. But anywho, what do I know, right? So let's continue on, Diaz-Canel, with what you have to say. Diaz-Canel goes on to say, here I also rectify that we have many revolutionaries in this country that are ready to give up our life. And that is not because they are told to. It is because of conviction. They will have to walk over our dead bodies if they want to confront the revolution, and we are willing to do everything. And we will be in the streets fighting. All right, time out. Pause. Diaz-Canel, I'm going to ask you, who are you fighting for? Oh, I know. You're fighting for a man named Fidel Castro, who's already dead. A man who didn't do anything while alive is now doing more while dead. Because that's what happens with dictators. They do more dead than alive because people can only fantasize about their failed policies and ideas. They can only fantasize about what would have been or what could have been, but fail to realize what is actually is and has been. Oh, and Diaz-Canel, you ready for everything? That means you're ready to kill your own people just because they want a change, just because they think differently than you, just because they want to be free to determine their own futures. The people of Cuba are demanding freedom from the oppressive tyranny they have been subjected to for the past 62 years. And your response, Diaz-Canel, which I must add, is being given as a president, in quotation marks, is one that issues a call to civil war. That, sir, is what constitutes a real genocide. Remember when you were asking if the U.S. having an embargo on Cuba during the pandemic was a genocide? I have the answer for you. The genocide is what you have done and continue to do, and your so-called revolution continues to do to the Cuban people. A genocide which you issued be completed against anyone who desires freedom from the failed revolution you so desperately cling to, because without it, you would be no one. Without this revolution, you would not be rich. Without this revolution, you would be an uneducated and unremarkable human being. Not that you're anything close to remarkable at this point, anyway. But you think you are, and the revolution inflates your sense of self-perception, which creates an egotistical monster to which the people of Cuba, without even having elected you, have been forced to bow down to. Once again, Diaz-Canel, I don't know anything, but it sounds like you're a dictator. Let's continue reading what you have to say. Diaz-Canel goes on to say, and we know who are inciting these types of incidents. Currently, there are groups of revolutionaries in the streets of Havana confronting the counter-revolutionary elements. We will separate the revolutionaries which may be confused. We will separate the residents of Cuba who may have certain worries, but we will not allow that any counter-revolutionary or mercenary which is sold to the U.S. government, sold to imperialism, receiving money from agencies, allowing themselves to be taken by their ideologically subversive tactics to provoke a state of destabilization in our country. We're going to pause right there again. You mean you're not going to allow the counter-revolutionaries to do the same thing that the revolutionaries did back when the revolution took place? Okay. All right. I see where you're going with this. You mean you're going to separate those who are opportunists, willing to succumb to your dictatorship when you offer them an extra pound of rice or a bottle of cooking oil, from those who are willing to sacrifice their lives in the hopes of being able to obtain their life necessities by the fruits of their own hard work. That's what you mean by you're going to separate the ones that are confused or may have worries from the ones that are actually trying to destabilize the country, right? That's what you mean? Okay. There are people in Cuba that work as doctors and engineers, and yet even they can't afford to buy what they need to live because the government does not pay them a living wage and overprices everything that does make it out into the shelves so that the government officials can reap the profits. So those doctors and engineers that are now asking for freedom are the ones that are not going to be allowed to say that, right? But then the people that get confused, so-called confused, and will then follow you into the dark because you gave them an extra pound of rice, those are not going to go to jail, right? Okay. Diaz-Canel, let's keep reading what you had to say. Diaz-Canel continues on saying, there will be a revolutionary response, and that is why we are summoning all the country's revolutionaries, all the communists, to go out into the streets, wherever there will be these provocations today and for the rest of days, and confront them with decisiveness, with firmness, with valor. This is the part where the so-called president, and we took a pause again from what he had to say, this is the part where the so-called president explains that there will be bloodshed. Because let's face it, the revolution succeeded in taking and maintained its power by killing thousands of people over the last 62 years. We must be honest and acknowledge that the revolution did not take power by doing what the Cuban people did on July 11th, 2021. The revolutionaries did not simply march peacefully on the streets of Cuba chanting freedom. Instead, they were cold-blooded assassins who murdered anyone who was against them, and continue to do so. But let's continue on with what Diaz-Canel had to say. Diaz-Canel goes on to say, because like I said in the congregation of the party, this revolution we defend all the revolutionaries, and in first file all the communists. And with that conviction, we must go to the streets. We are good in the streets, and we will not allow that anyone manipulate our situation. We will not allow that anyone defend a Cuban plan that is not for the well-being of Cubans, and that is a plan of annexation. And for that, we are summoning all the revolutionaries and communists. Thank God, that's, I think, the end of the speech, but we're going to finish off by saying, look who is talking about manipulating a situation, Diaz-Canel. In case you have forgotten, the Cuban government is a propaganda machine. In fact, if you simply go to the Twitter account of Diaz-Canel without knowing anything about Cuba, you think that everything is fine. You think that Cuba has no COVID. You think that everything is perfectly fine. You will think that Cuba is the most advanced, progressive, and welcoming country in the entire world. The Cuban government Twitter accounts and newspapers boast of the prosperity within Cuba without mentioning that it is just for those directly affiliated with the government. It talks about a top-tier medical system which is filled by competent medical doctors and even produce various COVID vaccines from scratch. I already told you about what I think about those COVID vaccines that the Cuban government produced. But I want you to remember that there is a catch to all of this. What these accounts and media sources fail to disclose is that people are dying in the hospitals of Cuba due to lack of medical supplies such as oxygen. That people are laying down on hospital beds, and we put beds in quotation marks, whose sheets are garbage bags. So if they die, the staff just needs to secure the bag and haul them off before the next victim of the Cuban government arrives. And while I'm not showing any pictures or videos of any of this, in order to avoid making the show graphic, I can assure you that it is easy to find the proof. All you need is to go on Twitter and search the hashtag SOS Cuba. You can go and search SOS Cuba hashtag, and right next to it put hospitals. All these pictures are going to come out for you. So, I want to remind you who the real killer of the Cuban people is. It is Diaz-Canel. It is the president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez, and all of the government officials inside of Cuba and outside of Cuba who operate in conjunction with everyone that agrees with them but destroys anyone who thinks differently. And now that we have finished dismantling most of his horrendous speech, I want to take the time to open the broadcast to anyone who has questions or comments on this topic. I do want to remind you all to please be respectful. I did destroy Diaz-Canel a little bit. I don't want them taking me down from YouTube. So let's please remain respectful. Let's try not to use curse words to keep this a family-friendly show. And I'm going to be posting the link right now. And I appreciate you all listening in to everything that I had to say today. I am very, very happy to have you here. I have just posted the link. It is there waiting for takers, waiting for people to join in. It's very simple to join. All you have to do is click on that link. It's going to ask you to put to allow your camera and your microphone, and then you'll be able to join me backstage, and I will put you on whenever you are ready. I do appreciate when people have headphones, so that way there's no background noise. I apologize about that. I do need some water. It's very tiring to talk about, to say the speech of Diaz-Canel. It brings a lot of bad taste to my mouth. So I'm waiting for takers to come and join me here talking about the speech of Diaz-Canel on July 11th, 2021. I have some comments of laughing faces, not sure why. I think it's because I decided to drink water on the broadcast. I know I'm kind of funny sometimes. Okay, we also have a comment saying here from Marcia Mena, hello, supporting young generations, trying that American people knows about Cuba. Yes, that is exactly what we are doing here on this show. We are trying to teach people who do not speak Spanish about the realities of Cuba, as well as the history of Cuba and the culture of Cuba, because I, to the end of my days, will always believe that Cuba is a beautiful country, no matter what government is running the country. It is a beautiful island. It's a beautiful country, and I hope to one day be able to see it with my very own eyes. Unfortunately, as you all may know by now, I am probably not allowed in Cuba anymore due to these little shows that I do, which I don't even think that many people watch, but I think I have had assigned my first Seaway Claudia. So I know the Cuban government is watching me right now, probably wondering. So I need people to join in. If not, we're going to have to end the broadcast. So I'm hoping people will join in soon. I need to get some takers. If not, it was just 37 minutes of listening to my voice for nothing. Let's see. I see another comment here. Diaz-Canel is not a president. He was not elected by the Cuban people. That is exactly the point I was making. Thank you for adding to it. He was not elected by the Cuban people. He was elected by the Communist Party of Cuba, which is not representative of the Cuban people. It's not. It's kind of like, if you think of it, it's kind of like how the Democrats select their nominee, or the Republicans in America select their nominee for president. Well, think of it like that, except whoever the Democrats select or the Republicans select as their nominee for president is the one that becomes president without going to a general vote in the population. So the Cuban people actually never go to a voting booth and vote. I do have someone that joined, yes, and it is, thank goodness, the only person that ever joins. All right, let's see here. Let me get this headphone on because it turned off after hearing you talk for so long.
Hi, Jasper. How are you?
Hi, Yuli. How are you?
Fine. Well, I appreciate that you do that because I think that people is very confused, or some people, about Diaz-Canel. First, I would like to say that Diaz-Canel is not the president because he was not elected by the people. So basically, he was put as a puppet to represent the dictatorship. So that's the first things that I would like to say. The other hand, I think that Diaz-Canel's speech was very responsible because he put people basically to fight face to face. And also he sent police and other people to fight with the people in the streets. And I would like to say that the people in Cuba, they don't have arms. So that means that was very unproportional because the police and all the people that represent the dictatorship have the guns and everything. And the people that was asking for libertad, for freedom, was actually without arms. So I think that Diaz-Canel is very responsible. It's not a president. So that's what
I agree with you, definitely. I think, we have someone else joining us. Let's bring her on before she runs away.
In the streets. And I would like to say that the people...
I have Iskra Perez aquí. Thank you so much from Let's Talk About Cuba. But Yuli, like I was saying, yeah, I do definitely agree with you because I don't understand how a president can incite violence in such a way and still be seen as legitimate across the world. I mean, I remember, not to talk about North American politics, but when something similar happened here in the US, everybody was crying out. And now we have a president of a whole country just 90 miles from us doing the exact same thing, calling for a civil war between their own people. And I mean, it shocks me that the United Nations is still standing behind this man. I mean, it's just, I don't get it. And I mean, let's just be clear. The Cuban people didn't vote for Fidel either because he took power and then he had an election that was rigged, which is not really an election at that point. So the Cuban people have never had an election since the early 1900s at this point. And I mean, even Batista rigged his own election. So the Cuban people, I don't think, have known what an election is since the first ever election of Cuba. And Iskra, thank you so much for joining us.
I have an issue. I have you on my two computers, and then I can't turn down the volume, so I can't go in through my computer because I'm sharing you on the screen.
I appreciate you doing that, though.
I can't, and I couldn't go in through my phone because then I couldn't bring down the volume. Because so then it was like, so I've had to come into another room to be able to talk to you.
But I like your backdrop, though. I like this backdrop a lot better. This is the one you should use for your show too.
Yeah, this is my office. I hate it here. It makes me feel like I'm actually working. So
I work out of my office too, so I literally just move my chair from where I sit for work and just slide it over, and I'm here in my studio.
yeah.
I understand the pain.
Yeah, so I actually never work in this office. I have a really nice office. This is my little Cuban, my little piece of Cuban, but I never work here. I always work at
So Iskra, I'm hoping you were able to tune in. Like, what do you think about?
I've been listening to the entire thing. Well, I mean, obviously, I heard the whole speech before, and
Right.
when he was giving it.
Same here.
And obviously, today I put on Twitter. I feel like every day they're carving their own, like they're carving their own, ¿cómo se llama? Tumba.
I get what you're saying. They're digging their own grave.
Yeah, they're digging their own grave every day more. Like,
Yes.
Every day they make more and more mistakes.
It's so hard for me to call them mistakes because I don't think they're mistakes at this point. I think they're so
mistakes because the reason why they're mistakes in today's world is because they continue to, the reason why I'm looking at them as mistakes is because they want to continue to rule in their own dinosaur way. I'm on Twitter like 24/7, and it's a new era.
I think, but what I was gonna say is why I think they're not mistakes is because they're doing these things and they're doing them purposefully because they think they're not going to get caught. Like, that's how cocky they are.
Yeah. Julie, I didn't say hello to you. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
How are you? You look beautiful as always.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they think they're not going to get caught, but they're going to get caught. I mean, this is 2021, and we're in this is the internet era. They're
right.
Everything is out there. There's no way of putting things, back. This is
back in the box.
Back in the box.
But okay, so now let's talk about this. Like, let's mix a little bit of like world politics into this. Like, okay, we're in the 2021 era, right?
Right.
We have the internet, but look at what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
It's like, we think about it, it's like, if what's happening in the Middle East is happening during the internet era, and this is me playing devil's advocate because I want Cuba to be free, but what makes us think that like Cuba is actually going to be freed from this stuff?
Because for starters, we don't have that type of taboo or that type of religious background.
That's true.
So our people don't have those
something to cling to.
Exactly.
I
believe this new generation, what we had before, the old generation had the old mentality of the communist regime because that's what they had to hold on to. But this new generation, communism hasn't given them anything. But
that's true. That's a very good point.
Absolutely, they have not. Communism has not given them anything but miseries, and so they are not taking it. They're not going to take it. And this is what we're seeing today.
And I think this new generation is a lot more rebellious in a sense. Even in the U.S., the new generation
all
is
new
way more,
generations are rebellious.
right. And
All
I think
revolutions are done by your generations, and this is this is why this is wonderful. All revolutions have historically been done by, because that's the time when we're rebellious.
right, when we're in our
But
younger stages.
when you're young, you have to be rebellious. You're rebelling them with your own parents.
There's some people who don't outgrow that rebellious stage. Yulia.
But I think it's wonderful. I think it's great that a lot of these kids are getting so involved, and they're saying enough is enough. We're not a lot of them could take the easy way out and leave, and they're not doing that. They're saying,
I think
they're saying no.
Exactly.
You're going to have to leave because this is our country, and I think that's a very brave thing to do.
Definitely, it's almost like they're going against
for them. Yeah.
It's almost like they're going against. It's almost like if the Cuban government is their parents, and they're just like, no, you're gonna walk out of this house, but I'm not.
Exactly. And every day it's something new. You're seeing the internet yesterday. So we saw, for those of you who don't know, yesterday the Cuban regime put out a decree 35, which they voted on by themselves. Nobody voted for it. They just decided this is a new law, and we vote for it, and this is it, and you have to do it.
I don't even know why they bother to write the laws, like actually bother to even write the laws, because they're just going to change them whenever they want.
And to be honest with you, like I told when my husband told me about this law, so the law states that anyone that goes on the social media and says anything against the government is going to go to jail, and it's going to get fined, and it's going to all these things. Well, they already do. You can get hired, you can get fired from your job, you can be taken out of your university. Currently, they already do all these things. They just didn't have a law for it written down. So now they have a law. Well, that's not going to stop anybody from doing.
Basically, what they did was to put in paper the things that they have been doing for 62 years.
Exactly. Absolutely. But that's not going to stop anybody from continuing to do what they do, because, first of all, this is a complete, violation of human rights.
Mm-hmm.
How much can people take? If you can't go out of your house because they have you immobilized, if these kids are just, social media is the only thing they have to express themselves, so if they can't do that, they might as well not live. So they're gonna continue. I have no doubt.
That's another point that you bring up that's really good, because we know how addicted the younger generations are with social media, and even sharing a meme about the Cuban government is now going to become illegal with that Decree 35. And I mean, I didn't even bring up the Decree 35 because I'm a little late with everything. Just like I knew about it already, but I had this show prepared. I did not have a show prepared on Decree 35. I was like, I'm late to everything, just like the Cuban government is late to writing down the laws on paper, like that they've already been executing.
Yeah.
But
I only brought it up because it was something that just and of course I'm on Twitter, so as soon as things come up, we see them and we push out the hashtags right away. So this is trending since last night because we started pushing out these hashtags. So
That's amazing. Talk more about. I know you're involved in a lot of projects, so talk about your projects now. Like
there are, yes, a lot of projects. But so one of the top projects that I'm trying to start pushing now is the human rights violation, which obviously this is we're seeing this every day, right? Currently, we have over 800 last time I checked, it was 843 people that we know of that are in jail. Now, mind you, there are many people that we don't know of because they haven't been, their family doesn't want to put them down on the list because they're afraid. So currently, we know of there are 843 people that have been imprisoned due to the protest of the July 11th protest, out of which almost 40 of those 840 people, almost 40 of them are under the age of 18.
That's sad.
That's
horrible.
I mean, we talked about it on your other channel, the other day. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, Yuli, you wanted to say something? I'm sorry, I cut you off. I do that all the time.
No, I just, Iskra, whatever you have that.
So my idea is, and one of the things that I'm hoping to get some help, because I really need to put a team together. It's going to be there's a lot of work to be done here, but I think it's well worth it. I think we need to put, faces and, these stories out there. These stories need to be told. These are,
sign me up.
These are violations of human rights, especially the children. I want to start with the kids. There's a 14-year-old this one just cracked me last night. He's 14 years old. He was taken from his house. He actually has a mental condition. It wasn't until the day before yesterday that they were able to send him the medication that he needs for his condition.
Wow.
His mother has not been able to see him since they took him away. She's only been able to talk to him a few times over the phone.
Wow.
He's 14 years old.
No, I can only imagine, because, honestly, like, I live with certain mental health conditions as well, and like I can't imagine not being on my medication. And as a 14-year-old, how do you manage that? How do you manage not? You've been on your meds. He's probably. I mean, if I would have been on meds since I was a kid.
And they're putting them in regular cells with other, people. It's hello.
We have my friend here, Jeanette, with her son. He's half Puerto Rican, half Cuban.
How are you?
Hi, Jojo. There's something that I can do from my show. Just send me the names, and I'm going to tell the people.
So the idea is to actually start. Really, what my idea is, I have a website that I'm trying to develop. The website has already been developed. I did it on GoDaddy, because I didn't want to do the whole programming thing. But basically, we're going. It's uploading the videos. What's taking me the longest is I need to translate the videos. I want to put closed caption in English to a lot of these videos that are out there, and do as much video as possible, because videos captions people. So I want to, and then of course it's in Spanish, and anybody can use them. They're going to be on the website, but anybody can use them. So you'll be able to go through the website, and the idea is, also to upload them onto the United Nations, because I want to, these things can't go without being told. These stories need to be told. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm down and so ready to help you with anything that you need help with.
This week in particular, I've been very busy because I have several clients that I have to finish some work for. So it's been, and that's,
no, I completely understand. But Yuli and I are a power team. We can help you.
So when I have deadlines, it's just a little hard,
Of course, yeah. But
I work for the good thing is I work for myself. So I sometimes take too much time for Cuba, and then I'm crunching, and which is what's happening this week. I'm crunching because I took too much time away, and now.
I completely understand. I'm a procrastinator, so I was doing my show this morning before work. So, but it was so great having everybody. I don't want to make the program too long because I wasn't hoping to get more people to join, but we have the people that matter right now. We have the people that matter right now. I think we're gonna do great things, honestly.
I think we need to be a little patient, and while I do want to to try while you're on, and I know it's hard because you're talking and but while you're on, maybe you can get someone else to share it on your phone with your friends.
Trust me, I spend my whole pre-show like 30 minutes before I send. Yeah. I'll be sending out messages to people I haven't spoken to in months.
I know you need to share it while you're on. So while you were on, the reason why it went up was because I was sharing it on my groups
okay.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do that.
You got to do it while you're on. So, but the issue is there's not a whole lot of, I don't have a whole lot of groups that are English speakers. That's
right. That's
the issue.
And that's what we struggle with.
I figure you guys do because you're younger.
No, I don't have a lot of buy-in. It's hard to get buy-in, and I think that's what we have a bigger conversation about. Yeah. We need the buy-in from the American population. We need the buy-in from the American people on the topic of Cuba. And you bring up a great point because I go to like my contact list and I have all these friends that speak English, but none of them care about what's happening in Cuba.
That's horrible.
And it's so sad because either they're not Cuban or they're Cuban, but they've lived here their whole lives. They don't really think about it. It's just they're still not connected to the island.
Yeah, but I mean like that, and I think that's why my project is so important, you guys, because like right now, look at what's happening in with the talent, with the Taliban. Like everybody's looking, they have everybody, and it's not about it's not about them. It's about this is a human right. These are human rights violations that everybody's looking at. You don't have to be
associated or identify with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's why.
That's why I'm trying to. I think this is why I'm trying to get this project going, because it's something everybody can connect to.
Right, it's finding that common link, and that's why I tried. I wanted to make this channel like not politically oriented. I wanted it to be like about where anybody can come learn about Cuban culture and Cuban history. Although we did have, of course, what happened on July 11th that creates a lot of content for politically motivated stuff. But I definitely want to remind everybody that this channel is just a way to learn about Cuba without knowing Spanish, and that's I think the greatest thing that we could do because. My mission is that I want to spread Cuban culture everywhere, and I want people to know about Cuba. And stuff like
and when I started my channel, it was because everybody kept telling me we need English speaking channels. Right. We need English speaking channel. Everybody kept telling me that, but then nobody would come on.
Right. I think it's that I'm planning on also making content where it's like videos that we'll set as instant premieres and stuff like that, so we can all watch it together, and just. But either way, as long as some people heard the message, as long as someone heard the message, that's all that matters. Some people are shy too. Some people are camera shy. So, Yeah. But I can count on you too. I can count on a lot of people to join me, and
we'll be here.
I keep talking about Cuba and keep talking about it as much as possible. But it was so great talking to you guys again.
Thank you, Jasper. Thank you for what you do, and thank you, Julie. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Make sure to check out Iskra's show, which is what days? Mondays?
Mondays at 8:00.
Mondays at 8:00 on YouTube. It's called Let's Talk About Cuba. She goes into really deep topics. This Monday was about international human rights violations that Cuba is committing.
Yeah.
It's very tough topics, but you're definitely not going to want to miss that show. If you speak Spanish and you watch me and you want to watch a fiery version of myself, you definitely have to watch Yuli D in Directo. Sundays at 1:30, I do produce that show, so you'll see all the great graphics and all that stuff that I do for mine. You'll see it, but for hers, and you won't see in the background you won't see this smiling face in the background. And you can ask Julie that. You'll see someone that's stressing out and pulling out their hair because I'm trying to get the actress, I'm trying to get the host to get on the chair and to sit there and not move again and fix the green screen.
Always
and all that stuff.
mad. Always mad. Always.
Who's mad?
I am.
You are?
Yes. When I'm filming, when I'm doing her production, I am pissed the whole time. I'm so angry at her, and it's like I'm pulling out my hair because it's just one thing over another. Like, oh no, I gotta still fix my makeup. I know you're starting in 2 seconds. Sit down. It's like. So it's definitely fun, but I think I have more fun doing my show than I have doing her show because man, it's like wrangling a crocodile with her.
And one of the things that we need to learn with YouTube, people want you to be natural.
Right?
You need to be yourself. It can't be programmed. It can't be. Obviously, we have to prepare. For the topic that you're going to be talking about. But you need to be yourself, and people want you to be just natural and, talk obviously about whatever topic you're talking about, but be yourself.
Not bore them. Yeah, not bore them, not lecture them. Exactly. That's why I try to keep it funny at all times, but
yeah. I don't know how to do that. I don't have that sense of humor. I think
I have a very dark, twisted sense of humor.
That's probably why people get bored.
I don't think people get bored of yours. I think the topics are just too tough for them sometimes. They're probably like, this is way too sad. I'm changing the channel.
Well, it's what we're going through right now.
But definitely, yeah. And it's very important to bring light onto it. But yeah, I'm going to kick both of you out so I can do my outro. Bye. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
How do I? Okay. All right. So everyone, that was the end of today's broadcast. I do thank you for stopping by, whoever did stop by. I want to remind you all that the topic of Cuba is so important. So if it is important to you about the misery and the suffering of the Cuban people, please share this channel For the Love of Cuba on YouTube, hosted by Jasper. It's every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Please share with all of your friends, all of your family, and just get people to connect with the idea that there's more suffering than just the one happening in the U.S. There's also suffering in Cuba, 90 miles away from here. And once again, I'm your host, Jasper, and I appreciate you stopping by. Patria y vida, libertad para todos. Thank you so much.